Hi, I'm Gregg LeFevre, and this is The Compulsive Storyteller, a series of short personal stories where we explore the idea that truth can be stranger than fiction. You'll hear two types of episodes here: my full-length stories, told in around 20 minutes, and Shorties, quick stories told in 5 to 10 minutes. New episodes are out every other week. This week, we have a multi-part shorty entitled Celebrity Run-Ins. Gabrielle Byrne and Tia. There have been many times when I've embarrassed myself in a run-in with a celebrity. I think I know them because they seem so familiar, and often ask, "Hi, how do we know each other?" Usually there's a tired smile because well-known people get this all the time, and they respond with some sort of variation of, "You probably know my work, I'm a singer, or I'm a politician, or I'm an actor." I met Gabrielle Byrne in this way. I was walking my dog Tia, a beautiful Sheltie Shepherd Border Collie mix, and we sat down at a table in front of a cafe in Soho in Manhattan. While I perused the menu, Tia had enough slack in her leash to get the attention of a gentleman seated at the next table. Maybe she was after some pets, or maybe his sandwich. He fondled Tia's ears and petted her enthusiastically. This was the point at which my, "Hi, how do we know each other?" routine started, and he responded, "You probably know my work. I'm an actor." And immediately I realized he was the therapist in the TV series I've been watching called In Treatment. I apologized for interrupting his lunch, but he seemed open to a conversation, so I took advantage of the situation and told him, "I've been watching In Treatment and have been very impressed with the presentation of the therapy sessions in this series. The one that had the most impact on me featured your patient, who was a Navy pilot, who, on the basis of faulty intelligence, bombed a target on the outskirts of Baghdad that was supposed to be a terrorist bunker, but instead turned out to be a madrasa, an Islamic school for boys, and your patient had inadvertently killed 16 young boys. As the therapist, you had such compassion and empathy and vulnerability, I was moved to tears." At this point, his attitude towards me shifted, and he'd had enough. I was about to share some of my own therapy stories, which possibly he intuited somehow. In any case, he paid his bill, stood, and walked away, but not without one more session with Tia. Woody Allen at Lucky Strike. Late one night, walking along West Broadway, my girlfriend Bethy and I were feeling no pain. It was after an after-party for an art opening, and we'd imbibed more than our fair share of alcohol. Bethy and the country and western singer Dolly Parton had one feature in common, or maybe I should say two, but without the singer's largesse. Tonight, she had on a tight white men's shirt untucked, and she was showing her ample cleavage. A block above Grand Street, we were intercepted by a couple of guys dressed in black, one with a clipboard. They asked us to stop because someone was filming further along down West Broadway. We asked them who was filming, and they wouldn't tell us. In the scene it was raining, so the production company had hung a window washer's platform, which had 4 different lawn sprinklers spinning out simulated rain, on the side of an old brick apartment building high above the sidewalk. Once the scene was shot, the water was turned off, and we were allowed to pass. Given we were drunk and had been somewhat rudely detained, I wasn't in the best of moods. Once we were halfway down the block, someone above us on the rail platform decided to turn on the water again. I suspected this decision might have been based on how Bethy was dressed. This was, after all, during the time that different bars held wet T-shirt competitions with their female patrons. As the rain hit us, I yelled, "Damn, what the fuck are you doing? Stop it!" Their response was laughter, and the rain continued. I was totally outraged, and we hurried down the block toward Lucky Strike, the bar where the film was being shot. Out in front, a couple of film security guards tried to stop us, but I barked at them, "Touch me, and I'll own this film." I knew that film companies and crews were forbidden to touch any pedestrians for fear of lawsuits. so they barely stepped aside, and I shoved through with Bethy in tow. Just inside the bar, we charged past the camera, and there, lo and behold, surrounded by cast and crew, stood Woody Allen. I charged in so quickly that I was able to get right up in his face. He looked scared and was blinking while I called him out. Your rainmaking crew thought it would be funny to turn the rain back on while we were walking below. Now look at us. We're totally soaked. So what are you going to do about it? He managed to ask in a high-pitched quivering voice what I wanted him to do about it. Get your rainmakers down here now and make them apologize. He directed a couple of crew members to go get them. Meanwhile, many of the people surrounding us inside the bar were smirking. Bethy and I were cold and had to wait awkwardly for the guys to come back with the rainmakers. I guess because they were low-level crew members, they took their apology seriously and seemed sincere, unlike everyone else in the room. Someone was kind enough to give us a couple of jackets to wear home. I asked if they had any Woody Allen jackets instead, and they just scoffed at me. Then, one of the high-level staff members, who must have been working on a handwritten release form, asked us each to sign it. No fucking way, I responded. With that, Bethy and I left the bar, but not without a great story to tell. The end. Meeting Frances McDormand. One night I was invited to a scotch tasting, and even though I'm not much of a drinker, I decided to attend. When I arrived, there was Frances McDormand tasting scotch. I found out later that given her celebrity status, she'd been paid $5,000 to attend. What the hell? Why not try a shot of top-shelf scotch? Since we'd already had a few, we fell into easy conversation, since the liquid had loosened our tongues. She then beckoned me into the hallway, and we snuck down the fire escape stairs, giggling and accidentally running into one another. That was the first and last time that I ran into Frances. But my hangover didn't go away for what seemed like an eternity. Kramer and Tia. When I lived on Thompson Street in the West Village, I took my dog Tia out for a walk a few times a day. One night as we left the front door of my apartment building, there was a fuzzy-haired guy crouched down by a big Harley-Davidson motorcycle parked next to the curb, chatting with the owner. There was something familiar about his voice. When Tia went over and nuzzled his shoulder, he said cheerfully, "Hello there, pup." Then he stood up to his full height, and there was Kramer from Seinfeld. You just can't beat New York for celebrity run-ins. Copyright 2025 by Gregg LeFevre. All rights reserved. If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Compulsive Storyteller, and we'd love to hear from you. This podcast is independently produced, so we really appreciate all your help and support. Share the show with your friends, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. You can also check out our website, thecompulsivestoryteller.com, for more information. Thanks for listening, and if you didn't like this one, the next one will be another story. The Compulsive Storyteller is now co-produced by Gregg LeFevre and Fadia Montserrat, who's also arranged the music and created the special effects. Emily Ramon does design, research, editing, and marketing. Peter Kokoma has made our theme music and for many seasons co-produced the show with me. All characters and events portrayed in this podcast are based on my truth, with some names and facts changed for privacy. The conversations and dialogues are based on my best memory, but are not word-for-word recreations.